Joe Tramontano here to kind of demystify or go through the process of converting the sound that you get from recorded LPs into MP3 files. Now, the selection that you just heard, this is actually from my late mother's collection. This is Chicago 2, 1970. And it was one of the first records I think I actually tried the process with. And at that time, I actually had an HP Pavilion. So the port going in was a line in, as opposed to a Mac, where I think I had to get something special to interface with between the turntable, the hardware, and whatever I had, which I'll go into more detail later on in this video. But otherwise, the one thing that I could tell you is that the sound that you get from recording old vinyl records is very revealing, especially if they're in good shape. There are a lot more sounds that you'll hear that you probably will notice that you never noticed if you ever heard it as a CD or downloaded it as an MP3 file. But the one thing that I could also tell you is that there are two ways to do this. You can do it the way that I'm about to show you if you want to use what you have and save a little money, or by all means buy a turntable that has a USB port. Many brands are out there that you can get from malls and many other different places. You can get them online, and there's nothing wrong with that either. You may spend like about $100 at the most, maybe, or maybe even $200, depending on the turntable you get. But the other way that I had, I personally spent like maybe about $20-30 on maybe the preamp, which I'm going to talk about, and the iMic, because I had a MacBook Pro later on. But otherwise, I saved like maybe a couple of hundred to maybe even a few $1,000s because I have a lengthy collection. So depending on what you have and depending on what you want to find out about, we'll first go into what you have, the turntables. Okay, now if you have a stereo system with a turntable built into it and it's the integrated type, then you're in luck. Because if it still works, the chances are that it also has a quartz synthesizer and an equalizer, along with an audio output for the left and right speakers. So you're good. The reason for that is that you won't have to worry about getting a signal. Now, with standalone turntables, it's a lot different. They simply only come with the left and right audio output, and that's it. With those types of stereo systems, everything worked independently, from the turntable, the cassette deck, the quartz synthesizer for the radio, the amplifier, and just about everything else worked independently. The only thing it shared in common with the pre-mentioned stereo system I said before is that it would have an audio output for home theater systems. But with these systems, everything will be connected with left and right audio output cables. And that's where you're going to have to get some kind of hardware that you'll have to use to be able to get a signal that otherwise you'd get with a synthesizer and everything else built into the whole unit. Now, the preamp that I use is a Microphono P400 Ultra Compact Phono preamp. It actually comes with an AC adapter that's 12 volts that you actually plug into the preamp itself, along with an input and an output. The input is actually double-sided male-end cables that go from the turntable to the input, and the output is pretty much almost the same thing except the input going into the device that you interface with the PC or the Mac that you're using, which is actually a 1/4-inch jack that you'd find for headphones. Okay, now there's a number of ways that you can interface what you have with the turntable, with the cables and the preamp, with whatever you use for your computer. If you have a MacBook Pro or a PC, the best thing that I recommend is the iMic. It's actually made by Griffin, and you can get it online. You probably have to send away for it anyway. I don't really think any retail stores really stock it, but it's very useful. It has 2 settings for line input and mic input. Then you have an input and an output, which are 1/4-inch jacks. They're made for 1/4-inch jacks, and they're female. And there's a switching device between line and mic. And there's a USB that can go into your PC or your Mac. And it's that simple. I think I paid $20 or so for the one that I actually got. And even like the preamp is very cheap. The preamp, incidentally, was about $14.95 from J&R Music. Okay, now, for me, the best thing that worked was Audacity in terms of the software, even though they got all kinds of software packages that you can get if you go to many major outlets. All you really need to do is download it on your Mac or your PC. They have it for both operating systems. I actually even used it in the studio, as a matter of fact, to lay down drum tracks. It's pretty good. It's kind of limited, but dependable. Starting out using it, you just had to remember that you don't want it to sound too distorted because it's a high treble that you usually get in terms of the sound when recording vinyl records. You can easily regulate that. They have all kinds of options and settings that you can put on, depending on what you prefer. Otherwise, that's pretty much the best thing that I used. Okay, now you got to understand that not every record is actually salvageable, or you may be able to play it all the way through. However, you may actually have some scratches and nicks that you just can't get out. Like, here's another gem from my late mother's collection, from the Viscounts, Harlem Nocturne. And it plays all the way through. It's from 1957, and like I said before, I was able to play it all the way through, and I did it just for a goof. But at the same time, though, you can still hear it, and I don't really know of any software that is out there that you could get to remaster the sound that you record from these babies to be able to get that out. I think it's a little too more intricate. I mean, I would think that you probably would have to go back to the master tapes. If I'm wrong, then somebody leave a comment and let me know, please. And truthfully, it's plastic gold, and if you're able to do it, it's time consuming. And, today, most people have a very busy schedule like myself. It took me a couple of years to really get my whole collection into MP3 files. Because I would just do it maybe 20 minutes at a time and go back to it. I wouldn't really do it all at once. But sometimes, if you have the time, you have some time off, you want to relax. For me, personally, it was the best way for me to remember my late parents. Because, most of my record collection consists of stuff that they got, or my uncle, my late uncle, and it's the memories. And like I said before, it's plastic gold, So I really do hope that this video helped you. I hope it was insightful. I hope it was easy to follow. If I did leave out anything, by all means, leave a comment. But otherwise, as they used to say back in the 1970s, jump back, baby.